So in this next section, we're going to look at some other tools. I'm going to import a new clip here. So this is a shot of a sandwich. It's actually several shots, so I'm just going to separate this first one right here. And we're just going to work on this little section here. So the first thing I want to do here is add a mask. So you can create masks in this tab over here. You got different shapes. So for this image, I guess an oval could be enough. So I can change the size here. Move it over here. Let's make it a little smaller around the center. And then I create a soft edge. So this part here is the soft edge, like this. And now with this mask, as you can see over here, I'm going to work only on a part of the image. So this, mostly the central part of the burger. So anything I do now over here will affect only this part. So if I push the offset, it happens in here, but it doesn't affect the rest. So this can come in very handy in a minute. But first, let's look at these three set of sliders over here. So I'm going to add a new node to before this one. Here we go. I'm going to deactivate my mask. We're going to work on the entire image. So you remember the offset just pushes everything up or down, as we can see here in the waveform. So this isn't what we want here. Here we want to have a look at these three things. So lift is basically your shadows. So if I turn the wheel here, you see it doesn't change the color of the burger so much, but mostly the shadow behind it. So either I do this for all four colors. So here we have white, red, green, and blue, or I can do it individually for the different colors. So here we have this detached burger floating in the void. I kind of like that. I mean, I could even accentuate it by pulling it further down. So now we got it really sitting in complete void. Or I could give it some context by pushing up the shadows. But here there's not much to be seen in the shadows. So you know what? I'm going to leave that as it is. Now, gamma and gain are basically the mid-range of the colors and the highlights. So let me pull up the gamma, and I'm going to zoom in a bit on the burger here. So see how it brightens up the burger, but it doesn't really change the shadow and the background so much. So this can come in very handy. And then gain. Now here we go really for the highlights, for the brightest parts. This is almost like we just turn on the spotlight on our burger, and you see how the background hardly changes at all because it just goes for the highest values of our image. So typically what you do is you adjust offset and contrast first, as we saw before. Let's quickly do this. Again, I'm going to set saturation to 0. I'm going to give it slightly more contrast. And this image is already quite very contrasty. Maybe I can give it a tiny bit more offset. Let's see what this looks like with the colors back on. Yeah, that looks good. And now we're going to go for the gamma and gain. So this is contrast offset. I'm adding a new node for gamma and gain. And you know what? Actually, we can do this in my node here with the mask. So I'm not going to touch the background at all. There we go. Just a soft roll off on the sides. And now whatever I do will be applied only to this. By the way, in the mask, you can also invert the mask. And now you'll be working only on the outside of the burger. But in this case, we want to work on the inside, so I leave the mask as it is. So now we're going to push the gamma a little bit for the mid-range, and the gain to give the whole thing a bit more brilliance. Now, this whole thing, it's a bit on the yellow side, especially the mayo. It's very yellowish, so I'm going to pull the temperature down here. So all the colors are going to go a bit towards the blue side, but see how the mayo now becomes all white. So let's deactivate this. Here, this is now, this was before. So but this is all yellow. And here with the temperature down, it becomes really white. Okay, so let's label this gamma and temp, and we add a new layer. Now we want to work on the colors. So we want to make these greens and reds a bit more intense. So this, I think, is the perfect tool for that. So let's have a good look at the cucumber and the salad. Yeah, here we go. So this is already too extreme. Let's see if I can just pull this back up a bit. Yeah, something like this. So let's compare. Command D. Yeah, you see how this lettuce now really pops out. Here, look at this. Cucumber 2. Now let's see if we can do something similar for the tomato. So the tomato is probably this bit here. Yeah. So here, you don't want to overdo this. Something like that. Yeah, it's subtle, but it makes it a bit more appetizing, and it doesn't change the rest of the image. You also want to check on that. So as I hover around here, it actually can see down here which area of the image this is. So we could try to like make the browns of the bun a bit more brown. Let's see if this works. I'm not sure. Makes it green. We can, yeah, this looks a bit more toasted. It's a bit too extreme. Let's see if we can keep this look, but just not as much. Kind of like this, maybe. Let's see. Let's compare. Yeah, that's actually not too bad. Okay, so this was the color warp. And one more thing we can try is to get these highlights out of the mayo. I mean, to accentuate the highlights, just to make it more, I don't know, Big Mac advertisement like. So for that, we can go to this here, the color picker, the qualifier. And again, this creates a mask, like the mask we did here with the oval. Here we can make a mask with this qualifier. It will select all regions that are in the same color range. So if I click on the highlight here, I can see tiny little dots which correspond to the highlights of this image. So now whatever I do, I mean, I can make this bigger. So if I pull this up, oops. Well, if you make this really wide, it will select more and more parts of the image. So if I take some more of the mayo, here we can see we got more mayo. And now if I go back here and I push let's say I push the gain. See how we see the regions that got selected. So I can just push this little bit a bit more. So it seems a bit glossier. So let's compare that with, oh, it's very subtle. Here, if I overdo it, oh, here we go. This is way too much. Yeah, so that's not what we want, obviously. Let me reset it and maybe just add a tiny bit. You can see it here on the bread. Yeah, not so sure I really like this, but I'll leave it in for now, just for the demo. I think the region that got selected here is too big. Maybe let's go back here. I'm gonna reset this. I'm gonna select a new bit here, and now it's gonna apply only to these highlights. Yeah, well, not incredible. You could probably skip this step. One more interesting step though, which we could do before we do these highlights here, maybe after the warp. I really don't like these highlights. Leave them off for now. So after the warp, just gonna label this highlights. So after the warp, I'm gonna add a node. So I'm gonna start running out of space. So in this node here, I want to work on the mids and detail. This is an interesting setting, as you'll see in a second. So if I push this up, you see how the image gets much more crisp. Or here you see it really when I pull it down, how it gets all blurry. Or like super crisp. And it does it only for the mid-range of the image. So this is quite interesting because it's selective. So I think I like it around like 20. Let's compare, Command D. Yeah, see, it just brings out like the pores of the bread and sort of makes the lettuce a bit crispier. Yeah, maybe we can even do it a bit more. 30, yeah. Yeah, we can see the little grains here of the bread. Cool. Yeah, that's our burger footage. Let's try the highlights again. Yeah, it's, for me this is too much, so I'm gonna leave it out. So let's play it back to see if this also works when it's moving. Yeah, this looks pretty good to me. So if I deactivate everything with Shift D, this is what we had, and this is what we got now. Now in this case, if I go back to my clip here, this is an edited clip. So now I just edited the first part here, but all of these color edits don't apply to the subsequent images, which were filmed with other cameras. So this shot, for example, will need different settings because it was probably filmed with a different camera, but you can use the same method. But if I remember correctly, here, a little later we come back to this initial shot. So usually you would do the color edits on the original footage and then it'll apply to the entire footage and you don't need to reapply. But if for any reason you need to like take the settings we have here and apply them to another clip, you can copy just the color correction and paste it on a new clip. Let me show you how. So I'm just going to cut this where it starts and go to the end of this. Oh, here the color changes. Not sure that's going to work. Well, we'll see. So cut here. So this is the clip I want to apply my color correction to. So I take this, I copy, just regular copy. And then here, I don't say paste, otherwise it will paste the clip, but I do paste attributes, or Option V. And now it asks what I want to paste. So here I can paste zoom values, cropping values, retiming, all of those settings you might have applied to your clip, and also the color correction. In this case, that's all we want to paste. So apply, and here we go. Now that's the clip with the same color correction applied. And if we go and have a look at this clip in here, it actually copied and it actually pasted all my nodes, even with the namings and settings and masks and all, as we had it before. And I can modify this here if I need to, or not.